The 2024 United States elections are scheduled to be held on Tuesday, November 5, 2024. During this presidential election year, the president and vice president will be elected. The following presidential election will be the 2028 presidential election. In addition, all 435 seats in the United States House of Representatives and 34 of the 100 seats in the United States Senate will be contested to determine the membership of the 119th United States Congress. 13 state and territorial governorships and numerous other state and local elections will also be contested. Voters consistently cited the economy as their top issue in the 2024 election. Following the COVID-19 pandemic, a global surge in inflation ensued that raised prices on many goods, though the U.S. inflation rate had declined significantly during 2023 and 2024. The New York Times reported that both candidates embraced a vision of a powerful federal government, using its muscle to intervene in markets in pursuit of a stronger and more prosperous economy. Domestic pro-Israel groups have spent large sums of money to support pro-Israel candidates against candidates critical of the Israeli government. According to a campaign finance analysis by Politico, AIPAC is the biggest source of Republican money flowing into competitive Democratic primaries this year. Several foreign nations may have interfered in the 2024 United States elections, the most notable being China, Iran, and Russia. The efforts have largely focused on propaganda and disinformation campaigns using inauthentic accounts on social media, and stoking domestic divisions and denigrating the United States and democracy more broadly. This will be the first presidential election held after the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and the third overall election cycle after the 2022 midterm elections and the 2023 off-year elections. Republican-controlled states predominantly passed near-total bans on abortion in the aftermath of the Supreme Court's June 2022 Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization decision. By April 2023, abortion was largely illegal in several states. According to the Kaiser Family Foundation, there were 15 states that have de jure early-stage bans on abortion explicitly without exceptions for rape or incest: Alabama, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, West Virginia, and Wisconsin. In states with laws granting exceptions, it was reported de facto that very few exceptions to these new abortion bans have been granted and that patients who had been raped or otherwise qualified for exceptions were being turned away, citing ambiguous laws and the threat of criminal penalties make them unwilling to test the rules. Democrats outperformed Biden's results in the 2020 U.S. presidential election in several 2022 House special elections, with abortion cited as a major contributor to their victories. Then during the 2023 elections, both Democratic and Republican operatives attributed the Democrats' overperformance streak to the growing bipartisan support of broad abortion rights in the wake of Dobbs' decision. Thus, many conservative political analysts and commentators called a continued Republican alliance with the anti-abortion movement untenable and an electoral disaster, and urged the party to favor abortion rights. Some issue polling has shown Donald Trump, the 2024 presidential Republican nominee, outrunning his party and closing the gap with Democrats on the issue of abortion, but no election data with Trump directly on the ballot has happened to verify these results. Mark Robinson, who once advocated for a complete abortion ban without exceptions, underwent a rhetorical shift in his North Carolina gubernatorial campaign. In 2018, he had labeled abortion as murder and genocide, but as the leading Republican candidate for governor of North Carolina in 2024, he avoided mentioning abortion on the campaign trail. However, his stance softened following the Supreme Court's 2022 Dobbs decision and the passage of North Carolina's 12-week abortion ban in May 2023. Robinson, who had shifted to emphasizing the term life instead of abortion, expressed support for heartbeat legislation with exceptions for rape, incest, and the mother's life. Despite his past harsh rhetoric, Robinson's then current position reflected a more nuanced approach to anti-abortion legislation. Abortion referendums are on the ballot in 10 states in 2024, Arizona, Colorado, Florida, Maryland, Missouri, Montana, Nebraska, Nevada, New York, and South Dakota. On November 18, 2022, 3 days after former President and Republican candidate Donald Trump announced his 2024 re-election bid, U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland appointed Jack Smith as special counsel to investigate Trump's role in the January 6 U.S. Capitol attack and Trump's mishandling of government documents, including classified documents. On March 30, 2023, Trump was indicted by a grand jury in Manhattan for his alleged role in a scandal stemming from hush money payments made to Stormy Daniels before the 2016 presidential election. On May 10, 2023, Republican New York Congressman George Santos was indicted on federal charges of fraud and money laundering. On June 8, 2023, Trump was indicted on 37 federal charges related to his alleged mishandling of classified documents by the Office of the Smith Special Counsel investigation. On August 1, 2023, a Washington, D.C., federal grand jury indicted Trump again on 4 felony counts of conspiracy and obstruction related to Trump's role in the January 6 attack and his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. On August 14, a Georgia grand jury indicted Trump on racketeering and other felonies committed in an effort to overturn the state's 2020 election results and the Trump-Raffensperger phone call. As of September 15, 2023, Trump has pleaded not guilty to all the charges. On August 11, 4 months after incumbent President and Democratic candidate Joe Biden announced his re-election bid, Garland appointed David C. Weiss to serve as special counsel to investigate Biden's son, Hunter Biden, who was indicted on September 14, 2023, on 3 federal firearms-related charges. On September 22, 2023, Democratic U.S. Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey and his wife Nadine were both indicted on bribery charges. On December 19, 2023, the Colorado Supreme Court removed Trump from the state's 2024 Republican primary, citing the 14th Amendment's ban on candidates who engage in insurrections. This decision was later overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court on March 4, 2024. The 2024 United States presidential election will be the 60th quadrennial U.S. presidential election. This will be the first presidential election under the electoral vote distribution determined by the 2020 census. Presidential electors who will elect the President and Vice President of the United States will be chosen, a simple majority, 270, of the 538 electoral votes is required to win the election. President Joe Biden initially ran for a second term and won the primaries, with Vice President Kamala Harris once again serving as his running mate. Biden later withdrew his candidacy on July 21, 2024. Biden's withdrawal made him the first eligible incumbent president since Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968 not to seek re-election, and the first to withdraw after securing enough delegates to win the nomination. Harris is the first nominee who did not participate in the primaries since Vice President Hubert Humphrey, also in 1968. Other candidates that entered the 2024 Democratic Party presidential primaries include Minnesota U.S. Representative Dean Phillips, self-help author Marianne Williamson, and businessman Jason Palmer, who have all since suspended their campaigns. This is the first election since 1968 in which an eligible incumbent president was not their party's nominee. After a survey by the Associated Press of Democratic delegates on July 22, 2024, Kamala Harris became the new presumptive candidate for the Democratic Party, a day after declaring her candidacy. She would become the official nominee on August 5 following a virtual roll call of delegates. In November 2022, former President Donald Trump announced his candidacy in the 2024 presidential election. Other candidates who entered the 2024 Republican Party presidential primaries include former South Carolina Governor and former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, and current Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who have since suspended their campaigns. The first Republican presidential debate was held on August 23, 2023, and the first primary contest was the 2024 Iowa Republican Presidential Caucuses, which was held on January 15, 2024. Trump would win the nomination easily. He was formally nominated at the Republican convention on July 15, his third consecutive presidential nomination. In October 2023, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced his run as an independent presidential candidate. On August 23, 2024, Kennedy announced he was suspending his campaign and backing Trump. In July, intermediaries between Trump and Kennedy discussed a possible role for Kennedy in the Trump administration in return for his endorsement. A month later, Kennedy made similar overtures to the Harris campaign, but was rebuffed. All 33 seats in Senate Class 1 and 1 seat in Senate Class 2 will be up for election. At least one additional special election will take place to fill vacancies that arise during the 118th Congress. Democrats control the majority in the closely divided Senate following the 2022 U.S. Senate elections, but they will have to defend 23 seats in 2024. 3 Democratic-held seats up for election are in the heavily Republican-leaning states of Montana, Ohio, and West Virginia, all of which were won comfortably by Trump in both 2016 and 2020. Other potential Republican targets include seats in Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Maryland, while Democrats may target Republican-held seats in Florida and Texas. 2 special elections are scheduled to fill the unexpired terms of senators who vacated their seats during the 118th Congress. Nebraska Class 2, Republican Ben Sasse resigned his seat on January 8, 2023, to become president of the University of Florida. Pete Ricketts was appointed by Nebraska Governor Jim Pillen to fill the seat until the special election, which will take place concurrently with the regularly scheduled 2024 Senate elections. California Class 1, Democrat Dianne Feinstein died on September 29, 2023. LaFonza Butler was appointed by California Governor Gavin Newsom to fill the seat until the special election, which will take place concurrently with the regular election for a 6-year term. All 435 voting seats in the United States House of Representatives will be up for election. Additionally, elections will be held to select the non-voting members who represent the District of Columbia and all 5 permanently inhabited U.S. territories in the House of Representatives. Republicans hold a narrow majority in the House of Representatives following the 2022 U.S. House elections. Special elections. 6 special elections to the House of Representatives are scheduled to be held in 2024. New York's 3rd Congressional District, Democrat Tom Suozzi defeated Republican May Zimilisa Pillip to succeed Republican George Santos, who was expelled on December 1, 2023, for making false biographical statements and alleged misuse of campaign funds. The district has a partisan index of D+2. New York's 26th Congressional District, Democrat Tim Kennedy defeated Republican Gary Dixon to succeed Democrat Brian Higgins, who resigned on February 2, 2024, to become president of Shays Performing Arts Center. The district has a partisan index of D+9. California's 20th Congressional District, Republican Vince Fong defeated Republican Mike Boudreau to succeed Republican Kevin McCarthy, who resigned on December 31, 2023, after his removal as Speaker of the House. The district has a partisan index of R+16. Ohio's 6th Congressional District, Republican Michael Rowley defeated Democrat Michael Kripchik to succeed Republican Bill Johnson, who resigned on January 21, 2024, to become president of Youngstown State University. The district has a partisan index of R+16. Colorado's 4th Congressional District, Republican Greg Lopez defeated Democrat Tricia Calvarese to succeed Republican Ken Buck, who resigned on March 22, 2024, due to dissatisfaction with the current Congress. The district has a partisan index of R+13. New Jersey's 10th Congressional District, Democrat LaMonica McKeever defeated Republican Carmen Buccio to succeed Democrat Donald Payne Jr., who died on April 24, 2024, from complications following a heart attack. The district has a partisan index of D+30. Wisconsin's 8th Congressional District, Republican Mike Gallagher resigned on April 24, 2024. The district has a partisan index of R+10. Texas's 18th Congressional District, Democrat Sheila Jackson Lee died on July 19, 2024. The district has a partisan index of D+23. Elections will be held for the governorships of 11 of the 50 U.S. states and 2 U.S. territories. Special elections may be held for vacancies in the other states and territories, if required by respective state or territorial constitutions. Most legislative chambers will hold regularly scheduled elections in 2024. The exceptions are the Michigan Senate, Minnesota Senate, and both legislative chambers in the states of Alabama, Louisiana, Maryland, Mississippi, New Jersey, and Virginia. In chambers that use staggered terms, only a portion of the seats in the chamber will be up for election. A number of major U.S. cities and counties have held mayoral elections in 2024. Pueblo, Colorado, on January 23, Heather Graham defeated one-term incumbent Nick Gradisar in his bid for re-election. Bridgeport, Connecticut, on February 27, two-term incumbent Joe Ganim won re-election against John Gomez after the previous election held in November 2023 was found fraudulent. Bakersfield, California, on March 5, two-term incumbent Karen Go won re-election against Gregory Tatum. Burlington, Vermont, on March 5, Emma Mulvaney Stanak defeated Joan Shannon, succeeding four-term incumbent Miro Weinberger, who chose to retire. Fresno, California, on March 5, one-term incumbent Jerry Dyer won re-election against James Barr and Samantha Dussel. Riverside, California, on March 5, one-term incumbent Patricia Locke Dawson won re-election against Jessica Katai. It was the first time since 2009 that it did not go to a runoff election. San Jose, California, on March 5, one-term incumbent Matt Mahan won re-election against Tyrone Wade. Kenosha, Wisconsin, on April 2, David Bogdala defeated Lydia Spotswood, succeeding two-term incumbent Jonan Tharamian, who chose to retire. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, on April 2, one-term incumbent Cavalier Johnson won re-election to a full term against David King. Anchorage, Alaska, on May 14, Suzanne LaFrance defeated one-term incumbent Dave Bronson in his bid for re-election. Wheeling, West Virginia, on May 14, Denny Magruder defeated Rosemary Ketchum, succeeding two-term incumbent Glenn Elliott, who was term-limited. Lubbock, Texas, on June 15, Mark McBrayer defeated Steve Massengale in a runoff, succeeding one-term incumbent Trey Payne, who chose to retire. Honolulu, Hawaii, on August 10, one-term incumbent Rick Blangiardi won re-election against June James. Miami-Dade County, Florida, on August 20, one-term incumbent Daniela Levine Cava won re-election against Manny Sid and Alexander Otaola. Eligible incumbents. Austin, Texas, one-term incumbent Kirk Watson is running for re-election. Baltimore, Maryland, one-term incumbent Brandon Scott was renominated for re-election. He will face Shannon Wright in the general election. Baton Rouge, Louisiana, two-term incumbent Sharon Weston Broom is running for re-election. Cheyenne, Wyoming, one-term incumbent Patrick Collins is running for re-election. Corpus Christi, Texas, two-term incumbent Paulette Guajardo is running for re-election. Costa Mesa, California, one-term incumbent John Stevens is running for re-election. El Paso, Texas, one-term incumbent Oscar Leeser is running for re-election. Fayetteville, Arkansas, four-term incumbent Lionel Jordan is running for re-election. Grand Forks, North Dakota, one-term incumbent Brandon Bochinski is running for re-election. Phoenix, Arizona, one-term incumbent Kate Gallego is running for re-election. Salt Lake County, Utah, one-term incumbent Jenny Wilson is running for re-election. San Diego, California, one-term incumbent Todd Gloria is running for re-election. He will face Larry Turner in the runoff election. San Francisco, California, one-term incumbent London Breed is running for re-election. Scottsdale, Arizona, one-term incumbent Dave Ortega is running for re-election. Springdale, Arkansas, four-term incumbent Doug Sprouse is running for re-election. Virginia Beach, Virginia, one-term incumbent Bobby Dyer is running for re-election. Ineligible or retiring incumbents. Alexandria, Virginia, two-term incumbent Justin Wilson is retiring. Grand Rapids, Michigan, two-term incumbent Rosalind Bliss is term limited and ineligible to run. Huntington, West Virginia, three-term incumbent Steve Williams is retiring to run for governor. Jennifer Wheeler and Patrick Farrell are the nominees for the general election. Irvine, California, two-term incumbent Farrakhan is term limited and ineligible to run. Las Vegas, Nevada, three-term incumbent Carolyn Goodman is term limited and ineligible to run. Mesa, Arizona, two-term incumbent John Giles is term limited and ineligible to run. Portland, Oregon, two-term incumbent Ted Wheeler is retiring. Raleigh, North Carolina, two-term incumbent Marianne Baldwin is retiring. Richmond, Virginia, two-term incumbent LeVar Stoney is term limited and ineligible to run. Sacramento, California, two-term incumbent Darrell Steinberg is retiring. Flajon Kofer and Kevin McCarty advanced to the runoff election. Stockton, California, one-term incumbent Kevin Lincoln is retiring to run for Congress. Tom Patty and Christina Fugazi advanced to the runoff election. Tulsa, Oklahoma, two-term incumbent G.T. Bynum is term limited and ineligible to run. Monroe Nichols and Karen Keith advanced to the runoff election. Wilmington, Delaware, two-term incumbent Mike Persicky is retiring. John Carney is currently unopposed for the general election. Pueblo, Colorado, on January 23, Heather Graham defeated one-term incumbent Nick Gradisar in his bid for re-election. Republican gain from Democratic. Burlington, Vermont, on March 5, Emma Mulvaney Stanak defeated Joan Shannon, succeeding four-term incumbent Miro Weinberger, who chose to retire. Vermont progressive gain from Democratic. Anchorage, Alaska, on May 14, Suzanne LaFrance defeated one-term incumbent Dave Bronson in his bid for re-election. Independent gain from Republican. Wheeling, West Virginia, on May 14, Denny Magruder defeated Rosemary Ketchum, succeeding two-term incumbent Glenn Elliott, who was term limited. Republican gain from Democratic. Tulsa, Oklahoma, on August 27, Monroe Nichols and Karen Keith advanced to the runoff election, succeeding two-term incumbent G.T. Bynum, who was term limited. Democratic gain from Republican. Fairbanks, North Starborough, Alaska, on October 1, Greer Hopkins defeated John B. Coghill Jr. and Robert Shields, succeeding two-term incumbent Bryce Ward, who was term limited. Democratic gain from Republican. In January, the Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation elected Sandra Patia tribal president, ousting long-term tribal leader Bernadine Burnett, who first joined the tribal council in 1992. Also in January, the Shakopee Mdewakanton Sioux community elevated Cole Miller from vice chair to tribal chairman. Deborah O'Gara was elected president of the Petersburg Indian Association in Alaska. Fred L. Romero was elected governor of the Taos Pueblo, and Craig Quancello was named governor of the Picuras Pueblo. In February, the Confederated Tribes of Coos, Lower Umpqua and Siuslaw Indians elected Doug Barrett tribal chief in a special election to fill the remainder of Donald Doc Slider's term, which expires in April 2030. Slider died in November 2023. In March, the Apache Tribe of Oklahoma re-elected Durrell Cooper III as tribal chairman and Matthew Tsali as vice chairman. Dustin Kazad was elected Apache treasurer and Donald Comardley and Amber Akilta were elected to the tribe's business committee. The Peoria Tribe of Oklahoma elected Jason Dollarhide as treasurer, Carolyn Ritchie to the business committee, and Stacy Lindsley to the grievance committee. In April, Lisa Gorey was elected chair of the Shinnecock Nation on Long Island. She is the first woman to lead the tribe since 1792. In May, Forrest Totoanipa was elected as chair of the Comanche Nation, replacing Mark Womavova, who declined to run for re-election after being censured for his approval of a refinery project on tribal land. Diana Doyi-Bisavo was elected vice chair. The Ottawa Tribe of Oklahoma elected Michael Scott Werner second chief, Callista Key as secretary-treasurer, Cody Hollenbeck first councilman, and Rachel Marie Yakey to the tribe's grievance committee. The Wasco, part of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs, elected Jefferson Green chief in a special election. Michael Q. Primus II, Ben Lucero Wolf, Tayatana Rosario, and Warren Quitone were elected to the Kiowa Tribe's legislature. The Shoshone-Bannock tribes in Idaho elected Lewan Tyler as chair of the Fort Hall Business Council. In June, the Pascua Yaqui tribe in Arizona elected Julian Hernandez tribal council chair. The Osage Nation elected Pam Shaw, John Maker, Billy Keene, Maria Whitehorn, and Joe Tillman to the Osage Congress. Charles D. Bold was re-elected chief of the Seneca Cayuga Nation, while Cynthia Bauer and John White Eagle were elected to the tribe's business committee. The Iowa Tribe of Oklahoma elected Abraham Lincoln, Perry Ahayati, and Christy Maudlin to the business committee. In a June Comanche Nation runoff, Lisa Dawsey was elected tribal administrator and law firm Crow and Dunleavy was elected tribal attorney. Also in June, Minnesota Chippewa tribe voters elected Bruce Savage to lead the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior Chippewa, and re-elected Kathy Chavers as head of the Bois Forte Band of Chippewa, Farron Jackson Sr. of the Leech Lake Band of Ojibwe, and Michael Fairbanks of the White Earth Nation. Grand Portage Band of Chippewa chairperson Robert Descamp was unopposed. The sixth group in the tribe, the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe, elected Virgil Wind chief executive in April when he won the primary election outright with more than 50% of the vote. Wind succeeded Melanie Benjamin, who decided not to run for a seventh term. In July, the Chickasaw Nation re-elected David Wars, Toby Perkins, Nancy Elliott, Shauna Tate Darter, and Scott Wood to the tribe's legislature and Linda English Weeks to the tribe's Supreme Court. Matthew Wesaw was re-elected to a fourth term as chair of the Pokagon Band of Potawatomi Indians Tribal Council. In August, Kathleen Wooden Knife won an open seat race to become the first woman elected president of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe. In October, Lac du Flambeau Band of Lake Superior Chippewa voters re-elected tribal president John Johnson, and the Kickapoo Tribe in Kansas re-elected Gail Cheatham as chairperson. In January, 3 proposed Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes' constitutional amendments failed after only 11.3% of voters returned ballots, short of the 30% voter turnout required for constitutional amendments to pass by the tribe's constitution. In June, the Cherokee Nation rejected a referendum calling for a constitutional convention to amend or replace the tribe's constitution by a margin of 69.5% to 30.5%. Also in June, the Osage Nation voters approved 76.9% to 23.1% a constitutional amendment allowing the Osage Congress to reject executive appointees during a special session. A Kiowa tribe referendum scheduled for June that would have raised citizens' blood quantum was cancelled. A measure to approve opening of a retail cannabis dispensary on the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs Reservation was not approved due to low voter turnout. The measure received approval from a majority of voters, but it required the approval of 1/3 of all eligible voters. In July, Seneca Nation voters rejected a referendum to establish a tribal police department. In October, the Yurok tribe voted in favor of removing blood quantum requirements for membership with a descent-based tribal membership in an advisory referendum. The Yurok Tribal Council will decide whether or not to amend membership requirements in the tribe's constitution. This table shows the partisan results of presidential, congressional, gubernatorial, and state legislative races held in each state and territory in 2024. Note that not all states and territories hold gubernatorial, state legislative, and Senate elections in 2024. The 5 territories and Washington, D.C., do not elect members of the Senate, and the territories do not take part in presidential elections. Instead, they each elect one non-voting member of the House. Nebraska's unicameral legislature and the governorship and legislature of American Samoa are elected on a nonpartisan basis, and political party affiliation is not listed. The election campaign has been marked by widespread doxing, swatting, and threats against politicians and activists, with a particular series of incidents starting in December 2023. On July 13, 2024, during a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, presidential candidate Donald Trump was shot at in a failed assassination attempt. The gunfire caused minor damage to Trump's upper right ear, while one spectator was killed and 2 others were critically injured. On September 15, 2024, the security detail of Trump spotted an armed man while the former president was touring his golf course in West Palm Beach. They opened fire on the suspect, which fled on a vehicle and was later captured thanks to the contribution of an eyewitness. In the location where the suspect was spotted, the police retrieved a modified SKS rifle with a scope, 2 rucksacks, and a GoPro in what was called a second assassination attempt. Thank you for watching this video.